Nick Meyer. Welcome to the Somewhat Daily News Backup for Wednesday, the 31st of March. It is somewhat daily because we come at you every Monday and Wednesday live on Twitch with all the gaming news that is fit to talk about, except all of that is about to change. More on that later, though. What isn't different is I am joined by my own Echo and also one of my, I'm going to say, equal six best friend in the world, Peter Burns. Congratulations, Peter.
Hell yeah. That's amazing. Thank you.
It's pretty good.
What an honor. I'll ask you about the other five later on and see if I can take them out one by one.
Good. And you do, of course, mean kill them.
Oh, yeah. Not take them out to try and befriend them.
No.
There can be only one.
But the only Pocketeer that we care about is, of course, the hero Pocketeer, Tim, who brings you the Somewhat Daily Backup thanks to the Learn Programming Academy. Get your exclamation mark Tim's out in the chat because the Learn Programming Academy offers classes for all skill ranges covering the entire gamut of programming. They're easy to watch for all skill levels, and they're almost all $20 or less. Tim has taught over 1 million people, and by this point, I could say he's probably taught nearly 2 million people, because I've been saying 1 million people for a while now.
I think that's fair.
I mean, it's technically still true, because it's over 1 million. You could never suddenly have lost students unless he was cooking the books. Do you reckon Tim was cooking the student books?
He wouldn't need to cook the books. He'd write a piece of code. He's got 100,000 actual students, and he's got 900,000 bots that his students have coded for him.
Do you like how we have a lovely, generous Pocketeer who donates a lot to us each month and was like, hey, would you mind shouting out my really honest business on your program? And we just accused him of fraud. Yeah,
look. He knew what he was buying into.
He knew what he was doing. Look, you want someone to not say this? Just give the money straight to Steph. You want someone to do what we do? You give the money to us. Head to lpa.dev/backpocket to download the custom Backpocket info guide on everything Tim, honest to a fault, has to offer and become the coding genius you didn't know you always were. All right, Peter, this news for the last Somewhat Daily Backup is not going to break itself. And thank God this is, I would say, the greatest news day we've ever had on the show.
I think so. I think every story today is going to blow people away with how much it's going to impact their lives going ahead.
My God.
Some lives are going to change today.
Like genuine... I'm so excited to get into it. We're being very sarcastic, but the first one, genuinely, there's quite a lot to it. Let's start off with CD Projekt Red, the much maligned developers of Cyberpunk, have decided to reconsider Cyberpunk 2077's multiplayer. So they put out a really long video detailing all this information. It's about 22 minutes or so, which is an incredibly long video to be talking about this sort of thing. But you know, when you have been accused of not necessarily being the most transparent, you go hard in the other direction. But Andy Chalk from PC Gamer reports that in a strategy video released today, CD Projekt said that it is, quote, decided to reconsider its plans for Cyberpunk 2077 multiplayer as part of a broader move towards a more agile approach to development. The studio is shifting its focus to bringing online elements to all its games where they make sense. Quote, previously we hinted that our next AAA would be a multiplayer Cyberpunk game, but we have decided to reconsider this plan. Given our new, more systematic and agile approach, instead of primarily focusing on one big online experience or game, we are focusing on bringing online into all our franchises one day. We are building an online technology that can be seamlessly integrated into development of our future games. Details are short on this at the moment, but they did say that GOG Galaxy, CD Projekt's multi-storefront launcher, will play a central role in the effort to grow a global community of gamers. And at the same time, he emphasized that this new approach should not be taken as a sign that CD Projekt is moving away from the style of games that they are known for. Peter Burns, how do you interpret this news?
I interpret this news as an inevitable growing pain of a studio that has become something way bigger than I think anyone in the company ever thought it could. This studio kind of floats on its own in the middle of Poland as like this AAA studio. That it's become a AAA studio kind of just like by gritting its teeth and marching forward and growing as the money's come in, as opposed to like, we don't see a lot of studios go from this kind of small darling studio to this massive behemoth of a studio.
Yeah.
So they've kind of hit this point where they've realized that they were not treating their employees properly. They are falling short of their expectations. They're falling short of consumer expectations, and they were taking shortcuts. I watched the whole 24 minutes of whatever it is, and everything about the internal restructures sounded really wise to me. And one of the big points that they made was it's an interesting video, and it's cool to get this kind of insight from inside the studio at this point in the studio's life. The interesting part to me was that they always used to operate on these like 5-year cycles, which is a smart thing to do, is to have a roadmap ahead of you. And they've said that they've switched that back to a 12-month cycle so they can be more agile and not as stiff and stuck in their ways, and change all of basically the habits of the studio, which I think is a really positive thing.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that since the launch of Cyberpunk, I was like, I had gone, like, multiplayer has definitely been shunted down the road while they get this game working. Is the taste in the mouth of people for multiplayer, given this game, there right now? And this is more like a long-term laying the track work, I suppose, for what they want to be achieving in 5-10 years time, not necessarily just like, hey, here's the next thing that we're doing. They announced as well that they were also acquiring one of their support studios, which was Digital Scapes, who worked on CD Projekt Red since 2018. And part of their specialty is that they work heavily in multiplayer game development. So they've basically, I don't know whether they're absorbing the studio or have just like now own that studio. But they're going to be heavily responsible for implementing the sort of bones of this multiplayer stuff across all their titles. I assume that we will be seeing a Cyberpunk multiplayer at some point. They do say that, it's coming to all their games. They do want that. They don't have that many games. They have a couple of franchises. And so we will be seeing that. It's just probably not going to be the thing that maybe they were planning. And I reckon that that's probably a good thing. It sounds like the part of the issue that they had with Cyberpunk was that there was not enough pre-planning. There was just a lot of constant change and churn of ideas, of tools, and this sort of thing. And that by hopefully implementing this sort of system at the beginning, then it's going to be able to help them make better games in the future. They also said that they want to expand their capability to make games, to do parallel development, so that it's not just the studio all working on one title, then releasing and then starting up another one, which is like a healthy business decision, I suppose, that you're not putting all your eggs in a Cyberpunk-shaped basket. Particularly given that, like, they just released that huge patch, 1.2, I think it was, and the first thing that I saw out of the patch was just a ton of glitch videos still of like, hey, here's all the stuff that still isn't working in here. And so that game has a long road ahead of it, but that would be probably easier to take if you knew that there was another team working on something else, like a Witcher or a new IP coming at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we should be getting our hopes up for a new Witcher anytime soon.
No, I don't think in any time soon at all. But I think that in like 5 years' time, we might be seeing a title, and then 2 years after that, we might be seeing another title, as opposed to these sort of massive multi-year gaps between.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that is what their intent is either. I think it's more that they've got teams that are able to uh, share their skill sets across both IP as things are getting built, which could mean it gets built faster, sure. But I think what they're talking about more is these little things that they're doing, like the Witcher AR game, like porting The Witcher and up-resing it for the new generation of consoles, which is happening this year,
You don't
according to this.
you don't think that, because they did specifically say that they were expanding development capacity, quote, to enable parallel AAA game development.
Yeah, like, sure, we'll see how that plays out. But I think it's more for them. Like, in theory, Cyberpunk was getting developed at the same time as The Witcher 3. So that's been happening.
Yeah.
But and Bethesda Game Studios as well. They're a studio that has things in development, but smaller teams working on a thing in parallel to a larger team working on the next project. I think it's like good for devs to be able to have multiple projects, IP to work on, to shift across to.
Yeah, definitely.
Kind of get a change of scenery, going in one week and looking at like fantasy monsters, and then the next week cyber psychos. Like, look, I think everything that is in this video is pretty positive. And yeah, like I don't think they need to rush more content out. They obviously need to keep patching Cyberpunk to a point where it's doing what the game should be doing.
Yeah.
These glitch bug things, I don't think are a problem. Like, people play Skyrim and it's still full of glitch bugs. Witcher 3 is full of bugs. People kind of know what you're going to get in a massive RPG. And as long as the game is playable and enjoyable, I think people can ignore the bugs. Cyberpunk at launch was way too buggy.
I would be really curious as to what the tail on Cyberpunk sales has been, because obviously it was enormous when it came out, but I don't know, was the word of mouth, it was that bad, the word of mouth, but was the word of mouth, did it have that effect where, someone who isn't necessarily that keyed into game development, goes, oh, I saw it on sale and I picked it up. Is that happening in the same way that, they would still be they are still raking in a fortune from The Witcher just constantly. And that's the kind of thing that can help maintain a studio for years while you're waiting for your next game to come out. And that part of the problem could be that, Cyberpunk isn't necessarily having that tail of sales, and in order for that to happen, they have to fix the game. But then even when they fix the game, is it the game that people want to be playing? Yeah, it's just a really interesting situation. Obviously, the company is still in a really strong position to be able to do this sort of expansion. And I think that the other thing that the video noted is we'll see how it all turns out. Obviously, ultimately, all the words need to turn into action. But it is interesting that they sort of just list off all these learnings that they've had, and going here's how we're going to change the way that we operate as a business because of what has happened over the last 12 months, or actually probably what's happened over the last few years, but we just didn't know about it. And an important part of that is increased focus on the health and well-being of the development team, which they had always said they cared about. And then there were lots of, crunch reports and stuff coming out around the release of the game. But also something they mentioned shorter marketing campaigns, is that they don't want this thing where the expectations, sorry, there's a dog outside, the expectations are being built to such a level that it can't be maintained by the game itself. So it's going to be interesting to see how CD Projekt Red changes going forward. Let me shut this window. Pete, say something interesting.
I will say something interesting. Dogs. A great pet. Nick doesn't have a dog. I don't know why there's a dog in his yard. So I'm interested in that. That was a lot of pressure.
Sorry, yeah. That was a really unfair setup. There's also now a crying baby in the hallway. So it's just all happening here in the Richardson household. Anything else you want to say on that one?
Not really. I'm just excited to play more Cyberpunk when the DLC comes out. So
God
I'm hanging
bless
out
you,
for
sir.
that.
God bless you. You
I mean-
carry that torch.
I mean, there's like, I think it's like, I'm not particularly carrying a torch. There's heaps of people playing it and enjoying it.
Carry that torch.
I think it's just like, it's popular to hate Cyberpunk. And so there's a lot of that online. But you know,
I don't hate it.
I'm
I'm
not saying
I just
you.
got bored. I just got bored by it, Peter.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a good game.
All I could hear is my daughter in the hallway going, "Uh-oh. She's clearly dropped something out of the pram, and so enjoy that. Also enjoyed the Coastal City gifting a bunch of tier 1 subs to people in the chat. My goodness, thank you very much, Coastal City.
My word.
If you got that kind of money to drop on subs, then you've probably got that kind of money to drop on some fancy new glasses from Niantic. So the developers of Pokemon Go and Pikmin Go, is it confirmed to be Pikmin Go? Is that what it's called? It's just a Pikmin game? I don't know. Anyway, Niantic issued a tease overnight showing a pair of Google Glass style spectacles that will be tailor-made to run their games. And that is an extremely close-up shot of them.
Yeah, and what I think this photo tactically does is ignore the HoloLens hump that's up over the top of your head.
Totally, yeah. Because you look at these slick. And you go like, God, these are small and so like smooth. There's a little speaker or possibly a microphone built in there as well. My goodness. Yeah. So this is a pretty logical step, I suppose, for the developers of games like Pokemon Go, where that sort of AR technology is something that's built into your phones. Why not have it built into glasses? Pokemon Go have had a HoloLens demo, which we saw last month, which you're seeing right now. It is arguably one of the most awkward demos I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, it's pretty cute.
It's just like these people as people in real life, I'm sure they are so lovely, and this is not their job, like to do this sort of like front facing camera stuff. But as people on camera, these people are not people. These people are robots. Like look how insane the HoloLens is.
Yeah.
Like remember what it was and what it's like, what it is now in terms of like something that actually works. That is like having a VR headset on your head. That is not the AR future that we were promised of, like basically built into your glasses.
It's definitely not consumer public ready.
Yeah. So they showed a Pokemon Go thing. It's a proof of concept, and they say it's not for consumer use, which is basically like that comes on the box for the HoloLens. But Niantic want to do something that is for consumer use. It looks like their spectacles, there's probably some stuff being hidden in that picture, but it's not as much stuff as what you're seeing there, I think. Like, I think that you can just even tell by the way that the lenses are there, this is more like a traditional spectacle with probably some thickness here. Also, it won't really have to do that much. It's not asking for like worlds to be torn apart in front of you. It's asking for like a Pokemon to pop up or a Pikmin to shake a tree.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
So don't get me wrong. There's still
a long way away
ridiculous.
from AR. That's
Yeah. But this is these glasses. We don't know when they're coming. We don't know how they work or anything. But they do say that they are being built to work with their existing and future apps. So it's a pretty big step. There's not many companies that you see where they're not in the sort of hardware business release a really bespoke thing like this just for their games. Like, you have to be a real Pokemon Go hardcore person to drop, I assume, hundreds of dollars on these.
Yeah, like, I mean, it is Niantic's business to make these kind of geolocation things, right? So it's like, even beyond Pokemon Go, is this, what do you call it, ARware going to be actually something that they're able to sell into?
Is this just the HoloLens that actually we all end up getting?
Yeah, but also like there's I think a very small consumer market ready for AR, excited about AR.
Yeah, where
if this piece of tech is useful for surveyors or for an industry, that that coincides with Niantic's kind of development goals, there's an avenue there for them to be producing these things and being able to move a lot of units if it's working as an industrial thing, as opposed to just a consumer Pokemon Go thing. And it benefits them to have more industries interested in using their hardware alongside their software capability. So, like, yeah, I mean, Pokemon, I don't think there's going to be many people walking around with these to play Pokemon Go, but we might see surveyors rocking them to, help data management and stuff like that.
To do whatever it is they do with those lasers.
What do they do with those things?
What do they do with them?
What is it?
It's always just... There's one on one side of the road, there's one on the other side of the road, and there's like 15 people standing around them just kind of looking at them.
They've all got a chocolate oak.
They all have a chocolate oak.
Which is a very fine drink, don't get me wrong.
Does it kill hungry thirsty? Is that oak?
I can't remember.
The other thing that we saw related to this is some Pikmin gameplay was revealed in the form of some just information, I suppose, about how that game is going to play. Basically, it sounds like it's going to be a bit more passive than what we've seen from Pokemon Go, that it's going to revolve around generating step energy. So the more that you walk, then the more step energy you produce, which will allow you to grow Pikmin from seedlings. You can then name them and feed them things to like nectar to turn into different colors and that sort of thing. And then you can also send them out to find fruit and that sort of thing, and gather other things, gather things from places that you've already explored. So it sounds more like whereas Pokemon Go was definitely something where it was like, go around, collect these Pokemon, and the way we've done it is kind of like put Pokemon in real life. This feels more like it really is motivating you to walk, to actually like arguably exercise more than Pokemon Go does.
Yeah, hearing what this game is, I'm actually pretty like, I'm not going to use it, but I think it's a really cool direction to take it, in that it is more about gamifying your exercise as opposed to being a game, which I think is the folly of that Witcher one, which is just so consuming. You need to focus on it. You need to go out and find battles and fight, and it's a process. Pokemon Go is a process, but it's simple. And I think that's what makes that effective. And I think this is good, going leaning closer towards being a really passive experience as well, and just getting a cute little interface to interact with at the end. Like the alternatives are these things like Run Zombie Run kind of thing. It's like, it plays music and you think of zombies chasing you while you're going for a run. It's like, that's the horror version of Pikmin being just like, congratulations, you walked this far, you're progressing, and you've got a nice visual like checkbox of going like, cool, you got more Pikmin because you walked. You achieved your walk goal this week or whatever. Totally.
And part of it sounds like it's arguably more passive. Like you go out walking, it tracks where you've been, you generate energy, and then when you get back home, you can then send Pikmin out to pick up seeds from where you were and stuff. So it's more like, you can play it while you're going, but also you can play it at home at night as a sort of like check-in game for what you've done during the day, which is a nice twist on what they've sort of been known for.
Totally. Yeah.
Less of a nice twist is that it has been confirmed by Sony, that the PS3, PSP, and PS Vita stores are officially closing down. So, confirmed on Monday, this is from Owen S. Good from Polygon, that the PlayStation Store access for the PlayStation 3, the PlayStation Vita, and the PlayStation Portable will end this summer. The PS3 and PS Vita stores will close on August 27th this year, and the PSP's remaining purchase functions will end on July 2nd this year. PS3, PS Vita, and PSP owners will still be able to re-download and play any games they've purchased through the PlayStation Store, and users can still redeem voucher codes for games in PlayStation Plus as well. Additionally, multi-platform cross-buy purchases are still possible, which means that you can still buy a game that's been made to play on both the PlayStation 4 and the PS3, the Vita, or the PSP. So if it's available on a console where the store is still active, you're still going to be able to buy that title. And you can still download that stuff as well. So this is confirming some stuff that we had heard reports of last week. And I think it's not as dire as people were necessarily expecting, considering that the basically the like whatever the activation ping key network whatever thing is that lets your Vita recognize that, hey, I'm pinging to a server to say I own this game and I would like to play it or download it, will still stay active.
Yeah. This is the way of things. It's unfortunate, but it has to come at some point, because Sony don't have the resources to. I mean, it would be great if there was more backwards compatibility for PS3 for the PS5, and I think if that becomes a focus for PlayStation, that will take some more of the sting out of this.
Yep.
It's hard with those portable things, though. It's like, I mean, you don't expect Nintendo to be supporting the DS, so they have to drop it at some point.
It's hard because, like, the games, like, there are tons of PlayStation 1 games that came out that we'll just never see again. But there's also lots of PlayStation 1 games that come out that we do see and that are emulated on the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, whatever. But yeah, like you said, anything that had a unique, and particularly it's handhelds that have unique controller interfaces that have a sort of gimmick to them, it is sad to see that stuff go. And I loved the Vita and the PSP. I loved them. They were such great. It's there. Mine's upstairs. Oh,
I haven't turned it on in years, and I put it on charge today, and I want to see if it actually boots up.
It was just such a great console. It felt so good to hold. The screen is fantastic. The games were just, some of the games were really great. Neither the PSP or the Vita, I feel like, ever hit that point where it was like a definitive console in the same way as like a Game Boy or a DS were. But there were so many games that I loved, like Patapon, Tearaway, God of War, Chains of Olympus was on there, Loco Roco I loved. Like, they're just Virtue's Last Reward, which we saw some footage of there at the beginning of this story. I mean, that's the sort of like Zero Escape series, and that was such a phenomenal way to get into the Vita as well. Yeah, I love those handhelds. I'm
a Lumines man for life.
Yes.
It is like, I wonder what's still installed in here. I've got Gravity Rush, Uncharted Golden Abyss, Little Big Planet Vita, Spelunky, Guacamelee. Oh, Cinemora was great. That was that shoot 'em up.
I never played that one.
And Steamworld Heist. That was fun.
Yes.
I had a lot of fun with this thing, man. It's cool. And I played Hotline Miami on it, and it's just, it feels good. It feels good to hold. I'm gonna miss it.
I think it was the Vita. Was it PSP or the Vita? I can't remember. One of them where I watched the entire season of Firefly for the first time on that. Like, a friend gave me like ripped versions of it that were in the format that would only play, like, it was in the sort of proprietary video. No, it wasn't on a disc, but it was the video format was like a proprietary
Sony thing,
codec wrapper thing that would, so I had this come in, it's like the only thing I could play it on was this tiny screen, but it was like before like everyone was wandering around just watching video on their phones all the time. Like, that's how I was watching that sort of stuff. So yeah, that is it's sad to see those stores close down. Not so much because I have gone to those stores in years, but more the idea that that for game preservation, obviously, there are going to be titles that arguably won't be accessible anymore. But I know that they've given a bit of warning to people, and that there are some game preservation societies and organizations at the moment who are just busy basically like getting all the games they possibly can off those services to make sure that they still exist. Because I do think that particularly, I think, given like, I think I more so probably the DS than anything else, but like there are so many DS games that I can think of where I go, it just did something so unique from a gameplay perspective that in 10 years time, there's going to be developers who are like, have never heard of that thing. And like Harry Hatsworth of being like, you solve this puzzle down the bottom screen as you're doing this hardcore platformer up the top and you're throwing things up. And it's like, that's going to be something that they will never have heard of, but there could be some inspiration there for something else. So, you know, being able to still play those games in some way, I do think is always important.
Yeah, for sure. I think like the hard thing about particularly like DSs and things like the Vita is like a lot of the really clever games for these platforms rely on the hardware of the platforms as well.
Yep.
And like I remember using this back panel to push things through the screen and some games and stuff. And it's like, wow, I'll never have an experience like this again because my monitor doesn't have a touchpad at the back of it.
I mean, Tearaway being such a great example of like really using everything like that you could poke your thumb at the back and basically a finger would appear on screen and just like track around the world was so cool. And like you said, only playable on that console. So yeah, if you want to if you'll still be able to download stuff, but if you want to buy anything, if there's any titles where you've gone like, oh, I've been meaning to play that, now is probably the time to boot that up and see what is still available. The last story I wanted to cover, just a very quick one, but interesting. So Metacritic, a resource that is both useful and completely not useful. It's a very interesting. Everyone's relationship with Metacritic is very interesting because it's like, it's totally, everyone always goes like, Metacritic doesn't really mean anything, but also like it really does mean quite a bit. So it's
it's nice to be able to quantify things.
It's nice to be able to quantify things, but also like who cares? But each year for the last 11 years, they have released their list of game publisher rankings. So this is basically the most popular or most well-reviewed publishers each year. And I don't know what you would have expected for 2020, Pete. But did you expect that the highest reviewed publisher in 2020 was Sega?
No.
Yeah.
How many games did Sega put out?
So that's a good question. I don't really know how they quantify this. I can see how many points they got. Number 2. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. But they had the highest average rating with 81.6%. But the way that they win this is the way that you are banking on winning the Back Pocket Fantasy Draft.
Yeah.
Which is by releasing titles like Total War and Football Manager, and basically expecting that it's like, these are games that aren't necessarily the most popular, but the audience that play them love them.
Yeah.
And they're speaking to an audience that they actually know. We saw they also they had Persona 5 Royal. They had Yakuza Like a Dragon as well, which were two really big ones for them that scored really well. And they had Yakuza 0 as well. I think they released on some platforms, and they didn't necessarily they didn't put out any games that Metacritic considered bad. So a sort of smaller pool of titles seemed to do pretty well for them, and it also did pretty well for the second place, which is Annapurna Interactive. Came in second with 81.9% as the average, but which is a higher average but less total points. I don't know how any of this actually gets scored. Capcom was third, Sony fourth, Activision Blizzard fifth, Microsoft sixth, Axis Games 7, 8 was No More Robots. Nintendo were ninth, which I was not expecting, and Devolver Digital was 10th. So yeah, an interesting little list that is both fascinating and completely pointless and means nothing.
Yeah, but fun. Numbers are fun, aren't they?
Numbers are fun. Potty Top says Football Manager should be up your aisle, Nick Boy. I have tried to play a couple of Football Managers. It's too much management. It's too much having that many players just constantly rotating. I need to just I have my squad. Just real life fantasy football is better for me. That's actually a job. Like Football Manager is actually just a football manager's job. And I already have a job. So I would like the fake job of just being able to pick the greatest players in the world and put them on a team.
Yeah. And when someone gets injured in real life, it's actually exciting. But when a digital player gets injured, you're like, oh,
yeah,
whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's really the reason
that's all we're in it for.
Fantasy sports. Yeah. So that brings us to the end of the news. But we've got a couple of news pieces for Back Pocket, I guess, ourselves. The first one being that we have a competition running that is going to be in tomorrow's show that you can be a part of if you want. It is the Make an Amiibo Monster Hunter Rise competition. We are giving away a physical copy of Monster Hunter Rise plus 2 My Nintendo exclusive Amiibos. It is the Palico and the Palamute. You can't buy these ones in store. You can only get them from the My Nintendo digital shop. Online shop, I suppose. And we are running a competition for you to be able to get your hands on a copy of this game. To enter, there is head to our Twitter, and there is a link there to enter, or it's also in the Discord. All you need to do is describe what a Back Pocket themed amiibo might look like and what kind of bonus it would give you in Monster Hunter Rise. We're going to announce the winners, or the winner in the Thursday night show. And Pete, I thought we could give the runners up. Maybe there's a Pockety mug or something we could toss their way.
Yeah, we got some mugs. We got some mugs. We could send out.
We got some pockety mugs that we can send out. So that is what we will be doing on the show tomorrow. So if you want to enter, then absolutely head to our Twitter at the Pockety.
And I just put the link in the chat as well.
Thank you very much. And then the other piece of news is, as we alluded to at the top, this is the end of the Somewhat Daily Backup as you know it. But like a phoenix, it will rise better, stronger, and but at the beginning, like a little bald, featherless monstrosity.
Yeah. It's like if you took a snapshot of Jean Grey turning into a phoenix in that X-Men film where she does that.
Yep.
There's like a few frames where there's something grotesque. Yeah. And we expect to be that for a while.
That's what it will start as, but then it will reach its full power.
Yeah, absolutely.
No doubt. In order to begin that transformation, we will be taking a week off next week from the news. So there won't be any news streams or whatever that is next week. And then it will be starting the next Monday. So not this coming Monday, but the next Monday, we'll be back with the revitalized news program. But still hairless.
Which is mainly because we want to take the public holiday off.
Yeah, it is funny because like we work for ourselves, and every time there's a public holiday, my partner's like, "So do you get the public holiday off?" I'm like, "No." We're always just doing something, and so it's like it's important that like, hey, we can give ourselves a public holiday. Let's just make sure that happens. Yep. So we will be taking that off. No news on Wednesday, and then we'll be back on the next Monday with a new show for you all. But Peter, we will be back with something new for everybody next week as well.
That's true. One of the new content ideas that we are piloting and we're confident will work and will be fun is a game club. We're starting with It Takes Two. And the way that the game club is going to work is that we will be playing It Takes Two on stream across the next month. And at the end of April, we're going to be doing a show from the studio. We want people to call in. We want to do a big celebration of the game where we basically review the game, and you've all seen us play it or you've played it yourselves, and we have a big powwow about like the big title of the month. So next Tuesday, we will be doing our first stream of It Takes Two, and that'll be Steph and I, because we've got some things to work through in our relationship.
That's true. And we thought that those things would be best worked out in front of a bunch of people.
Absolutely.
So there will be more information about all this stuff in the Discord with some times and some dates, and so it doesn't just get sprung on you, but we are excited to launch this stuff. So until then, Peter,
let's back it out.